So, Surbika, you're ready? Yeah.
Yeah. Just give me a minute.
How are you, Surbika? Fine? Okay, good.
Now it's live.
Yeah.
So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to yet another another live and interactive session of this 1 month long faculty induction training program, which has been organized by the Teaching Learning Center, Ramanujan College, under the aegis of Ministry of Education's Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission on Teachers and Teaching. Today with us, we have Dr. Surbika Maheshwari, who will be engaging with us, talking with us on the theme of active listening. Before I invite her to take over the session, I would like to give her a very brief introduction of Dr. Maheshwari. Dr. Maheshwari is associated with the Department of Psychology, Indraprasth College for Women, University of Delhi, and she specializes in the history of psychology, qualitative research, and clinical psychology. Prior to joining IP College in 2007, she has worked as consultant psychotherapist at Dr. Sanjay Chuk's clinic. Her recent publications include Identity and Self-Reflected in Pain and Its Processes, Images of Self in Psychological Thought, and Food in the City, Review of Psychological Impact of Growing Food in Urban Spaces. Dr. Maheshwari has presented papers in various national and international conferences, and she has also been the principal investigator of University of Delhi's Innovation Project, Picking Up the Threads, a study of endangered arts and artisans in India. She has also worked as consultant at Rajiv Gandhi Foundation in 2009 and regularly delivers lectures at faculty enrichment programs conducted by University of Delhi and Jamia Millia Islamia, amongst other universities. So we welcome you, ma'am, to this session, and I request you to kindly, take over the session and interact with the participants.
Thank you very much. I am very happy yet again to be at one of the faculty development programs organized by Ramanujan College. You are doing a phenomenal job. You are doing fantastic work. And I'm very glad to be associated and to be remembered time and again. And sometimes I feel I must be doing something right to actually be able to share my thoughts with you. So thank you yet again for giving me this opportunity to be amongst, I'm sure, a lot of interested, intelligent, articulate faculty who's interested to probably understand themselves better and understand the process of teaching and learning better. Today's topic, in consultation with Dr. Lata, is a topic which is something which I think is of paramount importance to human interaction, and a topic which is transformative. It transforms the person who is heard, and it transforms the person who listens. And it is a topic that interests, I think, just about every human being. It actually comes to me from professional training. To be trained as a psychologist, we need to understand the art of listening. We use it in counseling. We use it as a professional. But listening, if you just want to look at it, is something that we use pretty much in all our relationships, in all our any interaction that we may have with other people, and as well as interaction which is not necessarily always verbal. So we already are paying attention, trying to tune into, trying to understand another person's space. What I'm going to actually do today, and I would much encourage that as many questions, as many observations, as many learnings that we can share together. And let's not imagine this as a one-way communication just because we are online. I think we by now, over the 2 years of being online in the pandemic, we should have, and I'm sure all of us as teachers have, learned that let us make these spaces interactive. So I'd request everyone who's here, you don't have to wait for me to be quiet. You don't have to wait for me to give you some space and ask you to ask me questions. Please imagine this as your own space. where we are interacting together. We are talking and listening, and we are trying to understand each other. And it would have been just so much nicer if I were to be able to see you in person and we were able to observe body language, gestures, etc. But we will make the best of it, right? And we will begin. And I would like to call this session interactive right from the beginning. So I'm going to urge each one of you to talk, interact, make this the best for yourself. You have taken out the time and joined in live, which means I'm assuming that you'd like to interact. So do that for sure. All right. So I'm beginning with.
Yeah, I'll just take 1 second. I'll just take 1 second here. Those who are watching on YouTube can also post the questions on the YouTube live chat so that Shipra or any other person can take the questions. Yeah, Shipra, I hope it's okay.
Yes. We will take up the questions from YouTube chat also. Let it be inclusive.
Right. Okay. Beginning with listening. And listening is not something that only psychologists have spoken about. Listening is also not something that only psychologists use, right? We have sort of formulated that, we've understood that. But I'm going to obviously use insights that come to me as a psychologist for everyone to use and practice and understand listening better. And I'm going to focus on a kind of listening which is not necessarily very effortful, not necessarily draining, but a kind of listening which is spontaneous, a kind of listening where we are able to attend, we are able to understand, we are able to empathize, we are able to integrate the verbal and the non-verbal, the language and the para-language into the fourfold of making sense of people and our environment and their environment and the environments that are hidden inside of them. And that is something that with practice, with understanding, comes to you with a certain kind of ease, not with effort. So if you are saying that, okay, speak something, I'm listening. Hear yourself again. What you're saying is, I'm putting in effort and I'm hearing what you're saying, right? Hearing, listening, active listening. These are already three different, completely interacting, but different areas. Hearing is only our physiological response. Have you seen the fact that we can close our eyes? Yeah, we can shut them. And then we don't see what's happening around. Try closing your ears. We have an external pinna, which is quite unique to the human beings, but we do not have muscular control here, such as to shut it. We hear. It's also an adaptive mechanism, right? It is also adaptive for us to be able to listen, to be able to hear to the environmental sounds, to a predator, to a danger. So we actually use our ears as a survival tool. We already have a question. Someone has their hand up. Tulika Gogoi.
Tulika, wait. You can speak, I guess, Tulika.
Was that by mistake?
Perhaps. If there's any, yes, I think she will, otherwise she can post, and we can take.
Tulika, are you speaking? All right. Okay. So we hear, right? We hear already because we have a physiological device from which we are adaptive, accustomed to picking up sounds from our environment. So it's a physiological response. It's a biological attunement that we already have. Now, in this hearing, you will realize that the sounds which are closer to us, the sounds which are at higher decibel levels, the sounds we are interested in, right? We can hear them a little better. And that's when we are listening. So what are we doing? We are tuning in So if I am sitting outside of a room and inside of the room, there is a conversation happening that really interests me immensely. So I tune in. I sort of tune out the noises around me. I tune out the noises that are happening around my physical plane, and I tune into what's happening inside of that room. And I then want to listen to something that may not be as easy to listen to in my surroundings. So I'm tuning into something that interests me. I'm tuning in sometimes to something that may not interest me, but is loud enough, right? The third and a more advanced version of this is active listening, right? Now, active listening is not just here. Active listening is not just tuning in. Active listening is much more. Active listening is now working at two different planes, right? One is the verbal, where we are hearing, where we are tuning in, and where we can look for, understand, make sense of what is being spoken, right? Of course, we are assuming that it is being spoken in the language that you understand. Of course, we're assuming that it is being filtered through the various processes and coming to you. In active listening, what is also happening is you're listening to, you're tuning into what is not being spoken, right? So you're also tuning into the non-verbal cues, right? You're also tuning into the areas of conversation which are not necessarily expressed in words, right? We are tuning into verbal and non-verbal. In the verbal, we are tuning into language and paralanguage. What is language? Language is simply the words, the grammar, the rules that we use to understand what is being spoken. If you and I are speaking a different language, then maybe we'll not be able to understand. But maybe from your paralanguage, from your non-verbal cues, I'm able to understand that, oh, this means you need help. Oh, this means you're happy. Oh, this means that you're in a hurry, you want to go somewhere, right? There's some universal non-verbal cues, and we use them. Everyone knows this is bye-bye. Yeah, everyone knows this is come here. So there are certain, everyone knows that this is a smile and I must be happy, right? Everyone knows that when someone is breaking down and crying, it means that they're probably upset. So there are certain non-verbal universals. There are certain non-verbal personals, code language that you and I develop, or I develop with my best friend. Yeah, what we used to do just before entering an examination hall, maybe, that I will do, and you turn back. And if I do this, I mean, I want the answer to question number 2, right? Or I will put my hand on my head, and that means I need an answer to whatever question. And this might be a language between you and I, between my best friend, between the friend who is going to help me during the exams, right? So there can be personal language. Some personal language we develop without making rules for it, right? We never discussed, but now we know that this is what that means, right? A lot of linguistics are fashioned around how we attain language. How is it that we really develop an understanding of such a dense grammar, right? And there are various views, and there are various psychologists, theorists, cognitive scientists who have worked on the attainment of this very fundamental idea of communication that is language, right? Are there any people who've heard of any theorists who have worked on language? Any of you who've heard of anybody who has worked on language? Any ideas, any theories that you know around language? Anyone? acquisition of language, use of language, how do we learn language, how some children pick up 3 languages, are all words in a language taught to us? Any idea? Any people from linguistics here? Any literature people? No, no interest in language at all? Okay, we'll go further up. So here, what I'm saying really essentially is, so some important people, Jean Piaget, Noam Chomsky, these are people who've worked significantly on language and helped us understand how we attain language, how language develops, right? And here, we are also saying that there is a parallel language to language, a language which does not necessarily need rules and grammar, right? The language of things that we don't speak about. So there is non-verbal communication, right? There is also something called para-language. Now, para-language is things that we use with language, but they are not words. They are not grammar. They are like tone. Yeah. They are like intonation. They are like pause. They are emphasis. They are how excitedly you're talking about something. Yeah. Where are you using an exclamation? How do you change your tonal quality? My favorite example of this, and I'm sure anybody who has interacted with me by now has heard of this example like umpteen times. One of the most commonest ways that we can catch tone is of a simple phrase that all our parents have used and we have as parents use very often. जो तुम्हारे मन में आए कर लो. इसका क्या मतलब होता है? जो तुम्हारे मन में आए कर लो, इसका मतलब क्या होता है?
Don't do this.
Don't do this. Don't do this. What am I saying? I'm saying the exact opposite. जो तुम्हारे मन में आए कर लो. Right? But the tonal quality of where it was said, how it was said, who said it, will all actually tell us whether सच्ची में मुझे वो करना है जो मेरे मन में है या मुझे वो बिल्कुल नहीं करना है जो मेरे मन में है. Right? All of this is listening. All of this, intently paying attention, understanding tone, understanding non-verbal communication, understanding the said and the unsaid. Right? Sometimes we say मुझे बिल्कुल गुस्सा नहीं आ रहा. We don't probably mean कि मुझे बिल्कुल गुस्सा नहीं आ रहा. So there are lots of things about me which are saying कि मुझे शायद बहुत सारा गुस्सा आ रहा है. Right? And so active listening essentially then can be of 2 types. Right? Attentive listening, where I'm attending to all the material that is being given to me. Right? The second kind of active listening is reflective listening, which means that not only am I attending to, but I'm also actively doing something more. I'm interpreting, I'm meaning making, I'm going to paraphrase, ask you back that is this what you meant, right? And that those are the 2 kinds of active listening. Okay? Okay. Now let's do the first exercise. Here, I want you all to indicate to me in some language, verbal, non-verbal, message on the chat box, that you're here and you are with us. I am wanting for you to take a minute. Think of a conversation, a situation, an interaction where you felt heard, right? Where you thought someone really listened to you, right? And I want you to tap into your feelings and tell me, how did you feel after that conversation, after that interaction? And it not necessarily needs to be a very long conversation, but any moment in the last 1 year, 2 years, where, or if it has been so significant, you probably remember it over the years. Any conversation, interaction where you felt hurt. Yeah, I'm expecting responses here onto the chat box, verbally sharing it with us, whatever we may find most comfortable to do.
Participants can raise their hands also, and we will unmute them who wish to speak.
Yeah, but we'll give them a minute. So
Yes,
that
yes.
they can think. Yeah. Ramesh Kumar ji, आपका video on है. Is there, do you want to share something? All right. So what did it feel like to be heard? एक अच्छे conversation के बाद. I'm looking for emotional words of how you felt.
If I may say,
So go ahead.
It feels like दिल का बोझ हल्का हो गया.
Okay, right. Thank you so much. Such an appropriate phrase. Anji Shruti.
I would rather say hurt sometime when you're not able to explain yourself, when you're so done and you're like already exhausted listening to the other side, and probably you could not uh, even put yourself out completely. So maybe hurt more than anything else.
The question, Shruti, is what do we feel when someone has heard us completely?
Yeah,
What is
exactly.
our experience?
The only experience rather is that of hurt. I mean, like as an emotion being hurt, being inflicted by being hurt with someone. So yes, I know it's a bit complicated. So maybe like pain, if I have to give you a simpler.
So you're saying pain and hurt because the other person was trying to really listen to you, but you could not express yourself completely. Is that what you mean?
Or maybe I could not put, I was not given the opportunity that I could put myself uh, in the best possible manner. I did not have that space to do that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to share? How do we feel जब हम अपनी बात किसी को बोल पाते हैं, जब कोई हमारी बात पूरी तरह सुन लेता है?
You know, if I may say it, it's like it's a very calming effect. You feel, one feels very calm after that, like as if you have got a good massage. The kind of calmness you feel after getting, So it's not only in mental, but it's also physical. You feel very calm,
Relaxed. Yeah.
And Dr. Meenu Sharma here wants to speak and share.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I also, if someone hear me, then I feel relaxed, calm from inside.
Right.
मेरा दिल बिल्कुल हल्का हो जाता है, अंदर से शांत हो जाते हैं कि जिसको हम जो बात अपनी मन की कहना चाहते थे, जो बोझ था वो मतलब वो हल्का हो गया, तो अंदर से आत्मा से एक शांति सी महसूस होती है.
Right. Thank you for sharing. There was one more person who wanted to speak. किसी का भी hand raise हुआ था.
Please raise your hand again if you wish to speak. I'll unmute you.
All right. Thank you for these responses. How often now, and this I think everyone should answer, whenever we do talk, how often is it that we end up feeling hurt? कि सच्ची में हमने कुछ कहा और किसी ने सुना. Is it more frequent that we feel heard, or is it more frequent that we feel hurt? So first question first, right? How, or is it more frequent that we actually feel that we were really understood and someone really heard us out? Raise your hands. How many of you feel that this happens most often? Meenu feels that, Aprajita feels that. Very good, thank you.
No, I feel the other way actually. I raised the hand before, so
Oh, the
I
other
feel
way.
that
Okay.
yeah, it usually does not happen. I mean that someone gives you that much of time and really hears you out. I mean
Yeah.
And
Anji.
sometimes probably you don't even know to whom you want to say certain things.
Yes, yes, yeah. And we live in a world full of people. And we don't know whom to go
Yeah.
and just speak our hearts and minds and souls to, so that dil halka ho jaye. Huh?
Yes.
And
Dr.
obviously,
Sharma also wants to say something. Yes.
Hanji, Meenu ji.
यस मैम, ये हमेशा नहीं होता कि जब भी हम अपनी पूरी बात कह लें तो हमारा मन हल्का हो जाता है. कई बार अगर हमें सामने से अच्छा रिस्पांस नहीं मिला तब हमें लगता है कि हमने क्यों बताया, रहने ही देते तो अच्छा था.
एंड एक्चुअली ये वाली जो आज हम बात कर रहे हैं, ये वार्तालाप जरूरी ही इसलिए कि हम सब कुछ ना कुछ बोलना चाहते हैं, पर हम सब कुछ ना कुछ सुनना चाहते ही नहीं. And we have actually developed a culture of around a lot of things. Non-expression, silence, confusion, not being able to speak, not knowing whom to speak to. Because actually, not because we don't want to speak, but because we haven't felt heard the last time we did speak, right? And too many of us not listening to too many of us very intently, very well, very categorically, in a manner that the other person feels that agli baar bhi aaram se baat ki ja sakti hai, right? And that is the reason why a discussion on active listening is so very important. And here is where I want to highlight the impact of what listening does to the speaker. If I'm sharing something with you, then how is listening going to change me? What is listening going to do to me? So I feel heard, I feel validated, I feel that there is someone who is concerned about me, who cares about me. Yeah, I build a certain kind of closeness and intimacy. I also feel that when I'm allowed to speak, I develop a kind of reflection onto my thinking process. कभी-कभी बात करते-करते समझ आ जाता है कि गलती मेरी थी, right? But वो बात करना जरूरी होता है. कभी बात करते-करते समझ आ जाता है कि ओ ये confusion थोड़ा सा better हो गया. बात करते-करते therapy में not necessarily the therapist is doing much different from really actively attending and listening to you. This listening, in fact, becomes the via medium of developing insight, of being able to take you to a place inside of yourself, just because you were able to share it with someone else, right? That you have been able to reach a new place, a new understanding of something that, in fact, you were sharing, right? It also helps build perspective. It's very interesting. I'm most open to change when I feel heard, right? I'm most amicable to actually listen to the other person's perspective if that other person has heard mine, right? And it helps me sometimes look at things from a different perspective. You heard me, and therefore I will be able to listen to you if you tell me that isko na thoda sa differently bhi dekha ja sakta hai. But if you don't listen to me, I'm not going to say this to you. I'm not going to feel like saying this to you. I'm not going to be able to develop any perspective. So just being able to share my thoughts with someone, to be able to speak my mind with someone, does a lot to me, right? Now, the other is also not like there is no change in the listener. The listener develops empathy, right? The listener learns to develop positive regard. That ho sakta hai, my views are not the same as yours, but to be able to hear you out, to be able to understand where you might be coming from without judging you, without putting labels, without necessarily saying kaun sahi hai, kaun galat hai, but to just give a patient hearing actually helps the much needed development of positive regard and non-judgmentality, right? Much like the one who felt heard, the listener is also able to build perspective. If I'm able to hear you completely, I will be able to understand the world from your perspective, right? Incorporating difference, incorporating a different way of thinking, a different way of being able to amalgamate diversity, right? It also helps me build a very, very important skill. The skill of listening, of course, but many, 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 many small skills. Patience, right? Non-judgmentality, perspective building. Also being able to just wait, right? Also, if nothing else, listening is deeply humanizing. It really makes us the core, the base of what human beings are actually. Their core is made up of. To be able to understand experiences which are different from mine, which are not necessarily completely equal to same when the worldviews clash, that is actually, that essentially is the quality of a human being, right? And it humanizes us. Listening humanizes us. I often give this activity to my counseling students, and I feel everyone as just people should try and do it. Talk to at least one person who is the absolute opposite, different, as far as possibly different from you, at least one person every week. Try to hear just an experience of how they live their lives, what they wear, what they eat, what do they do, what according to them are their rights and wrongs, how do they view your world, just about anyone whom you think is not the same as yours. Yeah, it's a very, very good exercise, and it's actually a lot of fun to just hear. And from here, we come to the second reflective exercise. I'm going to want you to tell me, whom do you find most difficult to listen to? When do you find it very difficult to listen to anyone, right? Think of your difficulties in listening. Think of what you feel is very difficult for you to listen. Are there any people in your lives jinki baat suni nahi sakte, suna hi nahi jata?
Yes, ma'am. When we do not like just now you mentioned, when the worldviews are different sometimes, and sometimes also because of the inherent noise in that atmosphere, because you do not want to listen to a person because the noise, inherent noise in that place, or the timing, it is always disturbing, that you really do not want to listen. And sometimes also because you just don't like a person, you don't want to listen.
Yeah.
I don't know, I put it very bluntly, but sometimes you do not want to listen to a person just because you don't like him or her. Yeah.
True. Yeah, Shruti.
One, definitely what Lata ma'am has said, that sometimes you really don't want to listen to someone. No, maybe it's mean or anything, but yes, one is that. And second, I feel is being the person that I am, maybe extreme logic, like that reasoning logic. That is something that I feel that uh, I cannot then further keep my point, because that is something that I personally can't, know how to combat or deal with, when it's like extreme reasonings and logics and proving one and then second and then third and this.
Hmm.
So that is one place.
Yeah. And what I am hearing while you are saying this is someone who can't tune into my emotions.
Yeah,
And keep
exactly.
coming
Yeah,
back to
exactly.
them with
If I
logic.
put it in a phrase, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. One who is not ready to empathize, to
Yeah.
understand, who cannot even give you the leverage of the fact that right now you need to be heard. I mean, just that you just need to be heard. सुन लो एक बार, ठीक है,
Hmm.
whatever it is, let the other
And
person be pacified,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then maybe later on we can pick up things and then go one, two, three, four, five about them. So, but for that particular moment.
Right. Shruti, you actually raise a very, very important point, and thank you for raising that actually.
Thank you for
Not
such a
all.
wonderful session. I'm sorry, that's for the last, but sorry, I couldn't stop myself saying that. Yeah.
Actually, sometimes that is exactly where listening becomes a problem, right? I want to not look at your emotions. I want to not look at illogical statements. I don't want to imagine, accept, or be faced with the fact that you are angry with me or with anyone else, or you are missing me. Uffo, ye kya bakwas hai, etc., etc. Right? Everything needs to be as if logical, put on the table, and there is no space for me to express emotions. In fact, that is what gets lost a lot of times in conversations. हम कई बार बात कर लेते हैं, पर बात नहीं होती है.
Yeah.
बस information share होती है.
If I can add from a participant's perspective, so we have a participant, Sandeepa, on YouTube, and she's saying us that they are saying us that we don't want to listen to the people with negative thoughts and a person who could not understand your feelings and emotions. So this is what their intervention is on your.
Thank you very much. Right. And listening in itself becomes, yeah, Shruti.
I just want to say one thing. Probably this is what I meant when I say that we don't want certain people to like listen to us. The main thing, when we know that we are sure that some
We
kind
are
of
sure कि सुनेंगे ही नहीं हमारी बात.
yeah, exactly.
समझ ही नहीं आएगी.
So probably that is what.
Correct. Absolutely. और वो कहाँ से आता है? वो actually past experience से आता है. हमने try किया था बात करना, but इनको समझ ही नहीं आया. And कभी-कभी हम generalize भी कर देते हैं. हम सोचते हैं कि ओ ये किसी भी टीचर को हमारी बातें समझ नहीं आती, तो मैं अब आगे से किसी टीचर से बात ही नहीं करूंगी. या हम ये सोचने लग जाते हैं, ओ the administration is not going to understand us, so we are not going to talk to them. Sometimes we do very vast generalizations like, oh, men don't understand me, oh, women don't understand men. Not like I've spoken to all men, but we do this sort of a generalization, right? These generalizations actually, what are these generalizations essentially doing? They are making schematas. They are actually also, again, adaptive. They are keeping me from getting hurt. They are a protective mechanism, right? And that's what we are doing when we are zoning out and saying that we are not going to speak in front of these people or listen to these people, right? So disturbances in listening can usually be divided into three. One is environmental. बहुत नॉइज है, यहाँ पे बात नहीं हो सकती, जब मिलेंगे तो बात करेंगे, ये से होता है. जब मिलेंगे तो ये बात फोन पे नहीं हो सकती, एज इफ मुझे सही एनवायरनमेंट चाहिए ये बात करने के लिए, ठीक है. या जब हम अकेले होंगे तो बात करेंगे, दूसरों के सामने बात नहीं हो सकती. तो एनवायरनमेंट होना चाहिए सही बात करने का. कभी कभी एंड अक्सर देखा होगा कि जब बाकी चीजें शांत हो जाती है, जब रिफ्लेक्टिव स्पेस में हम चले जाते हैं, कुछ लोगों के लिए वो सुबह सुबह का वक्त होता है, कुछ लोगों के लिए वो रात का वक्त होता है कि अरे वो तुमने रात को बात कर ली ना मुझसे, इसलिए इतनी सारी बातें निकल गई. Right? It's a lot to do with the kind of environment we create. And as teachers, especially, we need to also understand that what environments are we creating in our classrooms. Not necessarily will students always come up and speak to you, but is there an environment of easy sharing? Is there an environment of possibilities of communications beyond the syllabus? Are there possibilities even amongst peers? And it is especially important in this online world. Are we able to create an environment of mutual reciprocity, respect, and sharing, where we can encourage students, colleagues to actually come up and share? Who creates this environment? How do we do it? Is it all my responsibility? No, it's a shared space. You and I, we do it together. हाँ, कभी कभी हम एब्स्ट्रैक्टली बात करते हैं एनवायरनमेंट के बारे में, जैसे हम कहते हैं कि इस इंस्टीट्यूशन में एनवायरनमेंट ही नहीं अपनी बात कह पाने का. वो ये किसने क्रिएट किया एनवायरनमेंट? मैंने और आपने और बहुत सारे और लोगों ने और इंस्टीट्यूशन ने और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने और स्टूडेंट्स ने और यहाँ की कॉन्वर्सेशंस ने, सबने, राइट? या सो एन एनवायरनमेंट is the air around us that we create that contributes to either a facilitation to speaking and listening or a hindrance to speaking and listening. The second kind of disturbances are internal. जब मैं बहुत जल्दी में, जब internally मैं ठहर नहीं पा रही तो मैं नहीं सुन सकती, राइट? जब मुझे बहुत भूख लगी, जब मुझे ही बहुत गुस्सा आया है, कैसे सुन सकती? बड़ा मुश्किल है सुनना, राइट? The third is relational. I don't like you. I can't listen to what you're saying. And that is so different, right? Because you and I are very different. I can't listen to this. Because you belong to a group, a category, a country, an environment, which is very different from mine. And therefore, I refuse to listen to your perspective, right? A certain kind of relational difference. Sometimes the relational difference is also a mediated relational difference, which means that I don't know you, but because you are linked to somebody whom I do not appreciate, like, or am angry with, I will not listen to you. Right? So there are also relations, or anybody who becomes very good, or what I wanted to become, or what I never wanted to become, I will not listen to those people. Right? All of these are relational. So remember, when you're trying to listen to someone and you're unable to listen to that person, a good idea is to see कि ये difficulty कहाँ से आया. Is it environmental? Is it internal? Is it relational? And then where can we start plugging that difficulty, right? What is it that is causing the disturbance? And now at this point, I already want you to be able to think of a significant relationship in your life where listening is difficult. जिनके बिना काम नहीं चलता है.
Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, ma'am.
Good example, right? Any significant. And now keep this relationship in your mind for the rest of the session. We'll keep coming back to it because we want to actually open up spaces where we can listen and hear. By now, I think we've also understood that this listening is essential in the world, in our communities, in our relationships especially, although not in therapy, But in our relationships, it is a mutual process. If I feel heard, I am more likely to at least make an effort to listen. If I don't feel heard, I am more likely to not hurt other people, right? If you give me a good hearing, if you actually are able to listen to me, like we said, I'll possibly be a little more open to change. But if you don't listen to me and अपनी चलाते रहेंगे, तो मेरे लिए भी आपको सुनना या आपके अकॉर्डिंग कुछ समझ पाना उतना ही मुश्किल होता चला जाएगा. Now, the process of really, one second, we have something's happening. Oh. Okay. So now we are saying that sometimes there is a lot of things said. I don't want to listen to all of it. So we are also looking for what I want to hold on to. What is the diamond here? There's a lot of kachra, kuda kabada. Sometimes there's a lot of garb of anger, but uske piche there is concern. Sometimes there is a lot of control, but uske piche there is a certain kind of goodwill, right? Are we able to reach to there? Are we able to get ourselves to listen to that which is not necessarily being said, right? This is in relationships. I also want to give you an example in terms of how does this work in, say, therapy or in a teacher-student relationship, right? A lot of times there'll be lots of things. There'll be like clouds. There'll be like a lot of, you will actually have too much of material that has been shared. But how you organize that material, how you actually make meaning, how you link one with the other is actually going to be the key to actually finding sense in all the gibberish, in all the matter, in all this voluminous verbalization that this person is coming to you with. Maybe उस पूरे 2 घंटे के लेक्चर में, उस पूरे 2 घंटे की शेयरिंग में सार की बात, इंटरेस्टिंग बात, एक्चुअली मीनिंगफुल बात ये थी, right? To be able to sieve that out, to be a good researcher, to be a scientific-minded listener, to be able to cull out from so much that has been said, the points that matter, what will lead you to make meaning, what will actually take you further to help you understand the position from which this person is talking to you, also to help you understand where is essentially this whole thing of maybe right now anger, maybe right now hurt, or maybe a certain kind of confused state is coming from. Sometimes we need to do work on not just paying attention to what is being said, but to also work with that data, work with all these words that have been thrown at you. इसका मतलब क्या था? इसमें से क्या-क्या चीजें कोई काम की नहीं, निकाल के अलग रख, और इसमें से क्या-क्या चीजें एक दूसरे के साथ बंधेंगी, and they will make a new understanding out of something that I was trying to present to you. This also is insight building, that aha moment कि oh, इतना सारा बात करने के बाद realize हुआ ये है, this is it, right? Sometimes we need to, even during problem solving, sometimes we speak to ourselves and sometimes we speak to someone else. When you're given a problem to solve, okay, this, What are we doing? We're using language. We are using our understanding of that problem statement. We are using our understanding of the past. We are using the understanding of insight to break it down and for this to make sense to us. Yeah? Does anyone want to share anything, ask any questions? No? Okay. Now I shall move on further. And we are going to do a self-assessment of your listening style. How is it that you listen? Now, here it is. Think of that one difficult relationship that I asked you to tag just a couple of minutes back. Okay? And if you do have paper and pen with you, make two different columns. Okay? And it is something where you will learn something very interesting about yourselves. Oh, how is it that you listen? And then one column is for that person whom you feel very difficult with. जहाँ बात करना बड़ा मुश्किल है, जहाँ कोई listening नहीं, ठीक है? एक दूसरा column बनाओ, where you should write that one person whom you feel a lot of ease in communication. Your best friend, a colleague, a partner, your child, where there's a lot of ease of communication. सबके दो column बन गए? Are we all together?
Yeah.
Okay. And now there are going to be some questions. Look at these questions. All you have to do is, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this. All you have to do it is that you have to read the question. I want to listen to what others have to say when they are talking. Almost always, often, जितना honestly कर पाओ, हाँ? दोनों जनों के लिए, ठीक है? सिर्फ अपने आंसर्स पहले एक जने के लिए पूरा करो, फिर दूसरे जने के लिए पूरा करो. Okay? Quickly. Read each of it. If anyone has any trouble understanding the statement, you can please ask me. But all of this is very simple. It'll give you some insight into how we are actually listening.
Ma'am, I think your screen is not full screen right now. Your presentation is not on full screen.
1 second, I didn't do anything. Now is it visible?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I don't know. Something just went off. Okay. Can we all see this? And can we all quickly do it?
Sure.
Okay. So that you feel that you're doing it all by yourself, I'm going to leave an empty chair. And I'm going to stand right next to it. So you do it. No judgment. Can I come back? Okay. As you're doing it, also, it's very easy to score. You can also score yourselves. All items other than 2 and 8 Yeah, 2 and 8 are to be scored 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Huh? 2 and 8 are reverse scoring. So 2 and 8 का है 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there anyone who's been able to do it for at least one person?
You may raise your hand, those who have done it.
Or you can just message in the chat box.
And this also goes for the participants who have joined us on YouTube. And
10 is confusing.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not aware of whether or not a speaker's meaning of words and concepts is the same as mine. Right? So how often does this happen? If someone says that I'm feeling sad, so I'm confused that what does this sad mean? Am I always confused? Am I often confused? Is it clear now, Dr. Meenu? Okay. Anyone would like to share? All right. Now, this inventory is actually a listening style inventory. What this really means is that there is various ways in which we listen to various people, right? Sometimes we have our own listening style, which means that if I had instructed you to say that, what do you usually do with everyone you're talking to? But when we actually concentrate on a particular relationship, it gives us a very, very interesting insight that what is our listening style in this particular relationship, right? Anyone who's scoring in that particular relationship or in that listening style, in that relationship, anything close to 45, 50, you will realize that you also feel very hurt in that relationship. Yeah, that we are invested listeners, right? So what are the various kinds of listeners? Invested, where I'm completely, consciously paying attention to everything that is being said. The second type is distracted listener. ठीक है, कुछ कुछ बोल रहे हैं, हम कुछ कुछ सुन रहे हैं. The third is passive listener. Distracted भी है और सामने वाले को भी नहीं पता पड़ रहा है कि आप बिल्कुल इंटरेस्टेड हैं, नहीं है, कुछ नहीं मालूम. Right? And the fourth is where there is a breakdown in listening. जहां बोल कुछ रहे हैं, हम समझ कुछ रहे हैं, वो सोच कुछ रहे. And those are, the fourth kinds are usually not because we are such bad listeners, but it usually happens in relationships where we also feel very not heard, where we also feel कि कोई यहाँ सुनता ही नहीं, मैं भी क्यों सुनूं? ये अपने आप अनकॉन्शियसली होता है. एंड हमें स्ट्राइव करना है टू स्लोली एंड ग्रेजुअली get to at least a place where we are engaged, where we are trying to pay full attention to. And believe you me, in a relational context, the better you listen, the better are your chances of being heard in that relationship. Yeah? And कई बार हमें लगता है कि हम तो सुनते ही रहते हैं, बट अगेन जैसे मैंने बोला कि सुनना, हियरिंग, इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम एक्टिव लिसनिंग, समझना, इम्बाइब करना, राइट? Yeah, this is one of my absolutely favorite people in listening, and this is where we understand a lot of listening, is Carl Rogers, one of the humanists who actually contributed a lot to the humanistic field of psychology and also to counseling and to therapy itself. So we think we listen, but we very rarely listen with real understanding, true empathy. Yet listening of this very special kind is one of the most potent forces for change that I know. This is the truest kind of listening. This is the kind of listening that will bring about a change, as we know, not just in the person who's being heard, but also in the person who is the one who is listening. Yeah. So listening helps in growth, in understanding, and in empathy building. And all of these three are humanizing qualities which make us not just better in relationships, but also better with our own selves. Remember, we also first owe listening to ourselves. We need to listen to ourselves. We don't need to keep pushing behind the head things that are difficult to talk about to ourselves. So start listening intently to yourselves first, and then perhaps to people you feel most difficult to listen to. Right? Thank you very much. And now let's open questions.
Yeah, if we can, Surbika, go back to the questions slide.
Okay, we shall. Sorry, I am trying to go back to it. Till then, if anyone has any questions,
yeah, others can ask questions.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that slide, and you can keep asking me questions.
Even on the YouTube, you people can post questions.
Yes, if I think people will ask the questions and I'll be the messenger.
Okay, I'm trying to screen share for some strange reason. अभी क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? I don't see that panel from.
Anyway, even if the question is not there, Surbika, I just wanted to know, like, if you are a good listener, your score is going to be, I think, on the higher side. Yeah,
correct.
Right.
Correct.
So if you are, with someone who are not listening, the score is going to be lesser, right?
Lower. Correct.
Yeah.
I would have, if I would have got at least some responses, I would have also told you what is what kind of listener.
Okay. So that's why I thought maybe we can.
So like 45 to 50 is an active listener. 38
Okay.
to 44 is an involved listener. 28 to 37 is a passive listener. And 0 to 27 is a detached listener.
Okay, but then it like you have rightly said, it also depends on
that particular relationship.
Yeah, relationship. Yeah, sometimes
Absolutely.
you are active, sometimes you are passive, and sometimes
yes, and sometimes actually, there is this also this misnomer, right? That we are one kind of a listener. Actually, we are not. We are not this one stable kind of a listener. We are many kinds of listeners inside of us.
Yeah. So with some people, we do not want to share, and with some people, we do not even want to listen.
We don't even want to listen.
Yeah.
Correct. Like we said, that there are interpersonal relational reasons for barriers to listen.
Yeah.
There are two questions on YouTube.
Yes.
One of the participants, Ruchishri, they're asking, how can we start listening ourselves better?
How can we start listening to ourselves better? What a good question. What a good question. The first of these is start spending time with yourself, number one. Number two, start some sort of use language, at least initially, right? Use some amount of language. So either use journaling, where you can write down your thoughts, or talk to yourself sometimes, or talk to someone who can listen to you very well. And these are just nascent ways, just the very first ways of beginning to listen to yourself. As we get better, as we get more advanced in being able to listen to ourselves, we use words such as intuitive. I can understand. There's a voice inside of me which is not necessarily verbal, but I'm able to hear it. So that is something which I'm able to pay attention to, tune into, right? And then when we get even better, then we can choose, we can segregate what we want to listen to, we can sieve, and what we don't want to listen to, right? But usually what we do it ulta. हम पहले से ही शुरू कर देते हैं what we want to listen to and what we don't want to listen to. So uncomfortable things get sidetracked and sidelined, and things which are comfortable, we already know something about it, that gets highlighted and we only listen to that.
I think that's a lot of us. Another participant, Karamjeet, they're asking.
Before you move on, Shipra, I just want to ask a connected question, But Survika, does it mean if you're listening too much to yourself, you stop listening to others, like you're too much consumed by yourself?
Not at all, actually, no.
Okay.
Listening too much to yourself doesn't mean you stop listening to others. In fact, it means that you have a good reflective potential. And listening is an activity which is, if you listen, you'll be able to listen more.
Like what I typically want to say is, if you are a too self-centered kind of a person who understands the self, you listen to oneself, your own self. No, okay.
No, that's not listening. That's actually, you're almost moving towards, say, narcissism. That me, myself, and I will only listen to what I think is correct and not listen to others.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Yes.
Actually, then that is not listening. That is actually not listening.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Shipra, over to you.
Okay. So there are three questions which are sort of interconnected. So I'll just pose them. One of the participants, Karamjeet, they're asking that during conversation, less knowledgeable person sometimes tries to dominate, and more knowledgeable person remains silent. So I think they want to know how to cope up, or how to face that.
There is no need to cope up. The more knowledgeable person is listening.
And Arusha Modi, they're asking that how well to listen, or how to listen well to students when we are physically sick. And in the same context, another participant is asking, what is non-judgment?
Oh, very good questions. Okay. So first, I'm going to answer non-judgment, and then I'm going to do how to. When there's a barrier to listening, it's an internal barrier, right? You're feeling sick. Then how do you listen to students? So I will first answer what is non-judgmentality. ये non-judgmentality ना बहुत ही आसान शब्द है, but बहुत मुश्किल है practice करने में, बहुत मुश्किल. Because बचपन से, हमेशा से हमें चीजें segregate करना सिखाया गया है, generalize करना सिखाया गया है, judge करना सिखाया गया है, that it is almost like second nature. That, oh, this one is like that, so this is the category that they belong to, etc. Right? This one is like that, so oh, this one is very naughty, etc. So we have these categorizations for people, and we try to make our lives easier by putting people in certain kinds of predetermined categories, right? Now, of course, non-judgmentality means that you're giving up this constant categorization of people. So you're first of all giving up moralistic ideas, which means good, bad, acceptable, unacceptable, well-behaved, bad-behaved, all of that. You're giving all of that up and you are tuning into the context of that person. You are saying that from the perspective of that person, what does he or she or they feel about what they are doing, saying, experiencing, feeling. It is not via me, it is via you. That is the first thing. The second very important thing about non-judgmentality is to actually suspend all internal judgments that we place onto people, right? We are sometimes doing it for actually just simplifying the knowledge that is coming to us, but unknowingly, we are actually, again, filtering out important information because maybe it's uncomfortable for us, right? So non-judgmentality means that you are able to suspend judgment, to be able to truly hear and listen to what that person is saying from that person's perspective. So it is an amalgamation of unconditional positive regard, empathy, and then comes non-judgmentality. And it is not something that is an achieved state. हाँ, ऐसा नहीं होता है कि अब हम non-judgmental बन गए हैं. हम फिसलते रहते हैं, चढ़ते रहते हैं, पर कोशिश करते रहें कि जजमेंट जितनी कम से कम हो सके उतना बेटर आप सुन पाएंगे. Now the second question. So you are rightly saying that you being sick is already an internal barrier. You can't listen to your fullest potential at that time because there is something. So you are also listening to yourself at that time. Your body is trying to shout out and say that I need attention. So you can't actually completely fade out that shout. So what at that time, what you should do ideally is that you should actually be honest about the fact that I may not be able to be my best at listening to you right now, but I'm going to try. Right? So you try and you say that अभी तो यहाँ मैं ही खुद थोड़ी difficult situation में हूँ, but मैं कोशिश करूँगी. And that in itself actually A, eases the burden, and B, makes for an honest communication between two people.
I think that's very true. So, based on this, I have a question from which I want to ask. So, based on the earlier question, based on the earlier conversation which we were having about when do we think, the other person is listening to us. Would you like to maybe share a bit about the whole idea of trust that we may want to share, but we lack that leap of faith or we lack that trust, and perhaps in sharing, we are, in return judging the other person that they will not understand us and they will judge us, and that's why we may not want to, talk about it.
Right. Now, trust is a complex emotion. It's a very, very complicated. It's not easy. It's not easy to either understand or build something like trust. Trust is something that comes from lots of spaces. It comes from experience of both me and others around me. It comes from learned responses. It comes from internal, instinctual. कि ये एकदम से हम इनको trust कर पा रहे हैं, right? But again, it's not like you should trust everyone. It is not like you should start speaking to everyone. Actually, also view your own. It's also the ability to sort of take a risk. Sometimes we are able to completely trust a stranger because हमें पता है कि कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. बोलो कभी नहीं मिलेंगे हम मेट्रो में इनसे दोबारा और अपना सारा गुबार निकल जाएगा. हम बोल पाएंगे and इनसे वापस मिलने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. Actually, trust अक्सर वहां पे जरूरत ज्यादा डिफिकल्ट होता है बोध समझाना, समझना और डेवलप करना जब हमें किसी से कंटिन्यूड रिलेशनशिप में रहना होता है. राइट? तो हमें बहुत ज्यादा डर लगता है कि ये ट्रस्ट टूट जाएगा तो हम दोबारा कैसे बिल्ड करेंगे, और अगर ये बिल्ड नहीं हुआ तो हम फिर कम्युनिकेट कैसे करेंगे, वहां पे एक्चुअली ज्यादा दिक्कत होती है. एंड like we said, like communication, trust is something that will develop slowly and gradually. Don't expect trust to develop overnight. कभी कभी बहुत साल लग जाते हैं ट्रस्ट डेवलप करने में. So begin with small communication, non-threatening communication, and see how that goes. If that goes well, you will feel more comfortable to have a slightly more detailed, in-depth conversation. If that also goes well, maybe you can have a little more intense conversation. But of course, it is very difficult to go on to the intense first without having built any trust.
Yes, I think, being vulnerable, that's, yes.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying that I think being vulnerable, that's why becomes a bit difficult many times.
Vulnerable, by the way, is one of the biggest strengths.
Yes.
Just the ability to accept our vulnerability is one of the greatest strengths. Can empathizing and judgmental towards someone occur simultaneously sometimes? Of course, it can occur simultaneously, but we try to become less and less judgmental and more empathetic. It is about degrees, right? It is not like puri empathy aa jati hai. So, agar judgment hai, to empathy bhi thodi kam hogi. So, judgment बढ़ाएं, empathy कम करें. Empathy बढ़ाएं, judgment कम करें.
There's a question on the chat box, Shipra.
Ma'am, that's the question which,
that's the question I just
answered. Yes. She just answered that. So, the comment box, you can see the chat box of Zoom. For YouTube, you can, I can tell you that the participants are really happy and they have found your lecture very insightful and very informative. Personally, I have found it very, insightful myself. So this is the final, round where I request the participants or even the organizing members if they want to ask anything from a resource person, and we can take a few questions more. Anyone? So I think then we can, head towards concluding the session. I'm not going to repeat as a way of thanking you for the session, what you have said, but you began your, presentation, your talk with your first slide said listening and its transformative power. And your first sentence was that this topic or listening in itself is very transformative, not only for the person who is being heard, but also for the person who listens. And I've always believed that, we always say that we need to be kind and compassionate towards our fellow humans to develop a more inclusive and equal world. I think your talk gave us one kind of direction as to how to go about it. So Dr. Subrita Maheshwari, on behalf of the Teaching Learning Center and the organizing team, we thank you for giving us time and talking on the theme of listening and actually, taking us towards a more insightful or a more helpful direction of how to be better with ourselves also. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Surbika. It's always a pleasure listening to you, Surbika.
Thank you. I'm only deeply humbled.
I think, Ravi, we can stop the live now.